Hello, my name is Anton, and today is episode 40 of Daybreak with Anton. And we're going to go over this week's brief titled Thankful. So I thought I would take a break on this episode from the exciting world of finance and focus on Thanksgiving, the many things that I'm thankful for and the blessings that we have. Now, it's nothing short of a miracle that we all won the gene lottery pool of being born in America. And most people around the world can't imagine what it's like to live in a country where food is plentiful, in stores everywhere, fresh running water in our homes, and no military oppression. And in fact, we have the freedom to drive from state to state, cross state lines without ever showing papers. There is so much pain and dysfunction and corruption and destruction going on around the world that it's almost inconceivable to perceive how fortunate we are. During the summer, I had an epiphany as I was up early one morning reading the reports on the war in Ukraine. And that previous day, it reported many young soldiers, and especially the Ukrainian soldiers, who had now entered into hand-to-hand combat and using rocket launchers against tanks. And there I was in my den, and I was profoundly struck by the differences of our lives. That very moment, young men are in the streets fighting for their lives. And there I am on the other side of the world thinking about my day of meetings. It was a humbling moment and quite a stark contrast between our two lives. In 2020, my wife and I moved to San Antonio for multiple reasons. One was primarily to help her dad, Keith. At 88, Keith was in reasonably good health, but he was suffering from COPD, and he was living in Aransas Pass, Texas, which is right on the coastline just south of Rockport. And elderly people, which I have since learned, can fall into a syndrome called tea and toast syndrome. And that's a diet of tea and toast in the morning, an apple at lunch, and a microwave dinner for dinner. And this malnutrition results in weaker bones and, of course, weaker health. And we picked him up at the hospital after he had a recent fall, and it was not a moment too soon. The malnutrition really started to take place in his life. So we brought him up to our new house in San Antonio, moved him in. And after he settled in, my wife embarked on a quest to bring his health back with good cooking. Now, keep in mind, my wife is a great cook, but she really doesn't like it. However, with Keith moving in, she was now motivated, and quickly cookbooks started showing up in our mailbox and amazing meals on our tables. His health did improve, which was fantastic. We went on a number of day trips together, and she and he had lots of long talks together, and it was great. And our evening routine started a process of eating an amazing meal again, cleaning up the kitchen, and then playing a card game that we all enjoy, called 313. And we'd do that for an hour or so, and then he would go to bed. And I would regularly warn Keith as he was walking out of the kitchen that don't you die, because you are my meal ticket to amazing meals every night. Now, my wife's siblings, while Keith was living with us, were now able to come and visit us because where he was living wasn't very accommodating for that. And that was great too. And he didn't do a really good job staying in touch with his family. And so this was a great time for everybody to get connected. One morning, we both woke up early. We're both early risers, and made him a breakfast, and over a cup of coffee, he started sharing his entire life story with me. And I'm so thankful that I took notes. We did research on the actual Navy ship that he served on, and researched a number of the places that he lived. In January of this year, we celebrated his 89th birthday with a party complete with a candlelit birthday cake, and all of us singing to him happy birthday. Later that evening, my wife found out, talking to him, that was his first birthday in his life. And it was primarily because his mom died when he was 4, and his dad, overwhelmed with 3 young boys during the Great Depression, didn't have very much time for birthday parties. I say we picked him up not a moment too soon, because it turned out we had 13 terrific months with him. Keith died peacefully on March 18th, a couple months after that birthday party, with my wife holding him. And we are very thankful for the time that we had with him. We're thankful for the relationships that were renewed, not only between us and him, but the siblings, his daughters, and him, as well as my wife and them. So it was really a great time, and we're very thankful for that. I'm personally very thankful to be alive. Some of you may know that on September 9th, I was involved in a horrific plane crash. To give more details on that, it was the morning of, and I was going to fly out with my contractor, who is also a pilot, in his Piper Lance, and he flew from Austin to the airport, Valverde, where is near my house, to land and pick me up. And then we were going to fly to Dallas to go look at some cabinets for a new development that we're doing in Austin. What he didn't know is that in his flight from Austin to my airport, which is about 40 minutes away, his number 4 cylinder had significantly declined in compression. And during that flight, he was able to make it to our airport and land safely. But the airport that he took off of in Austin was 8,000 foot long runway. And that's plenty of runway to generate speed and take off. But at the airport I was at was 2,800 feet long. And that's about half the length of most airports and a third of the length of the airport that he had just taken off of in Austin. So we got in the plane, the engine was running fine. What we don't know is that the compression and the horsepower was declining dramatically. So we did our run up and did all our checklists, or he did, and everything checked out fine. And this is an interesting thing about engines, is they can run smooth, but not be generating horsepower. So we taxied to the end of the runway and stopped and turned, and looking down the runway, he did one final check through of the gauges and then pushed the throttle to full RPM, released the brakes, and what I felt was a very mild launch of the plane. So we're going down the runway, and as I mentioned, it's 2,800 feet long. So that's not very long to be able to determine if you're going to abort takeoff. And unfortunately, the plane moving slower, we passed that point of aborting on the runway, and he was committed. At the end of this runway, this short runway, is a barbed wire fence. That on the other side is a street with morning traffic of parents taking their kids to school. There's a school right next to the airport. And in front of the street are power lines, and past the street are trees. So none of this is very good to run into in a plane. So as we're going down the runway, we were able to get enough airspeed to, he was able to bring the plane up, and we just barely cleared the power lines. And as we're slowly climbing, we're now above the trees about 100 feet, and it's clear that we're not moving nearly as fast as we should be. And as the plane is now starting to sink down into the trees, it's clear that we're in trouble. As we're moving forward, you're looking all around in a case like this, where to land, and there's just trees everywhere. And as we're about ready to drop into the tops of the trees, an opening of about a football field sized field of no trees opened up right in front of us. And literally, we just came over those trees and dropped down into the field. And we are very thankful that we didn't have trees. However, we have a new problem, is because we're now going 80 miles an hour on a dirt field headed towards trees at the end of this very short field. As we're plowing towards those trees, right in front of us is a big oak tree. And as we're going towards it, right at the last minute, the plane bumps a little bit to the left, about 10 inches. And instead of a head-on collision right into this tree, it hit the right wing spar. At that point, it severed the wing immediately. It spun us around clockwise as we slammed into the next set of trees. And those two impacts completely stopped the plane. From a lot of noise and the drama of the landing, we went from that to complete silence. So we both immediately shouted out, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And both of us were amazingly fine. I kicked the door out, which is also a miracle, because when planes crash, they crumble like a tin can and you can't open doors. And I was able to kick the door open. We were able to get out, and we were able to be completely safe from the plane, and amazingly, without a single scratch on either of us. There's a lot of miracles here that I can go through as a pilot that are just extraordinary. Number one, that we were able to land in that field. That field, if we were just 100 feet left or right on our departure, we would have missed that field because there's just trees everywhere. The second miracle and blessing in God's grace in watching over us is that we didn't hit the tree head on. I mean, that would have been done. I mean, planes aren't like cars with airbags and all that. And then secondly, because it just missed the fuselage or the main, the propeller and the main part of the airplane, it hit the main spar of the wing, which is one of the stronger components of the plane. And that dissipated a lot of energy, even though it severed the wing immediately. And then as we spun, we actually hit into the trees sideways. And so that almost like caught us like a net. Another amazing component is that neither wing tanks blew up, which is very typical. You have this all this metal and of course the collision itself, and you have 100 octane fuel, and we had full tanks, so 50 gallons of fuel on both sides of our plane. So that didn't blow up. We were able to get out. The plane was fine, no fire. It was miraculous. And within about 10, 15 minutes, we were surrounded with a group of people, of the paramedics, the FAA examiners, agents came by to check out and file a report. Of course, we had ambulances and police and sheriff, and it was quite a scene. And that, because it was no deaths and the plane was destroyed, of course, no damage to anybody. We landed in the field. The whole process of filing the report and all that just took a couple of hours. And before 10:30 that morning, we were with our wives having breakfast. It was a very surreal moment that we all had. Needless to say, we are very thankful for that experience. My pilot friend and I being able to walk away completely unscathed without a single injury. So that was fantastic. So a lot of blessings this year. It's been quite a year. So what does this mean to me? Thanksgiving is a great time to think about all the blessings in our lives. And the worst conditions of the people in America are some of the best conditions around the world. And for most of us, we're doing better than 90% of Americans. There's a lot for us to be thankful for. I'd be remiss to not thank, of course, my wife of 43 years, who has been an amazing companion for her love and support and counsel all these years. My son, Niall, who's worked in our company now for 12 years now, and Rachel Pierce, who many of you know, has done an amazing job serving you. So I'm very thankful for all that has happened, and I'm very thankful for all of you that have read and listened to these weekly briefs, and some of you for more than 20 years. So really appreciate that. I'm very thankful for all that has happened in our lives and how God's watched over us. And this year has been a particularly amazing year for us. So I wish the best. We all wish the best for you this holiday season, that you'll have a very good, productive year next year. And hopefully, if you're as lucky as most people, you won't experience what it's like to be in a plane crash. I'm Anton Bayer, and we look forward to talking to you soon. Bye.